Well, hello rally friends and welcome back to my kitchen table. Is it a little bit late to say Happy New Year? Well, I'm going to say a Happy New Year to you all. I do believe that this is my first kitchen table of the new year. To be wishing you a Happy New Year after the Monte Carlo rally, though, does seem a little bit odd. Apologies for that, but there we are. So, Monte Carlo rally. What a start to the year we had. It really delivered in spades, didn't it? We had battles really to watch all weekend, particularly that enthralling battle at the front between Ogier and Neuville, and then further down, the battle for third place between, well, ultimately Tanak, Loeb, Latvala. Oh, it was absolutely enthralling. It was a perfect way really to start the year, but you'd have to say it's pretty much as we were at the end of last season. We've got Ogier, we've got Neuville, we've got Tanak battling away, and if that's a sign of things to come for the rest of the WRC season, then we're in for a treat. There are others, clearly, on the evidence of Monte Carlo, who might well get themselves into that battle at the front in particular. Well, let's talk about him first, because as a Brit, I think it's reasonable to be at times a little bit parochial and a little bit nationalistic. So let's talk about Chris Meeke. His career was all over, wasn't it? After, where were we? Sardinia. Was it Sardinia last year? No, it wasn't, was it? It was Portugal last year. His career was all over, and it was frustrating because we'd always known that Chris Meeke had the speed, he had the ability. The question mark was over his temperament, really, and his mental ability to adjust to the circumstances in which he found himself, to be able to adapt his driving to suit what was required. Chris Meeke was is still, I'd argue, very much in the Colin McRae mould. It was all or nothing, and in the Citroen days, it didn't work. He was out, he was gone, wasn't he, after that monster, that horrific crash. And do you know, there's no other way of describing it. It was horrific, that crash in Portugal. Really nasty crash that could have been an awful lot worse. And Citroen, who knows what happened there, but they felt they had no choice. Off he went, and we thought, reasonably, off he went into the sunset. That was it. Chris Meeke, the great unfulfilled talent of the WRC. Fast forwards 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, whatever it was, to Monte Carlo. He's there in a fabulous Yaris, gleaming new overalls, fantastic new co-driver next to him in Seb Marshall, looking, sounding like a different man. Can we argue driving like a different man as well? Well, perhaps we can, because it was a measured drive in Monte Carlo from Chris Meeke. It really was. Take out the unfortunate situation. This is a big question mark, not over Meeke, but potentially over the Toyotas. Take out these broken rims. Now, something that I observed, something that Meeke confirmed, he's got concerns about those rims. You take out, I think he had 3 broken rims, 2 punctures over the weekend. Tanak had 1 puncture. And we look back to last season and remember he lost Spain because a rim broke and he had a puncture there. But anyway, I'm sure they're well on top of that. You take out that, and Meeke's drive was faultless, absolutely faultless. And more than that, the power stage was extraordinary. It was an extraordinary drive by Meeke through the power stage. Oops, that's my, let me just double check something here. Stand by, folks. Apologies, let me just double check. Here we go. These things happen when you're doing these things at home. Sometimes you get little issues. Little issues, just a small one, not a big issue. Stay there. Trying to sort my equipment out. There we are, that'll stay there. Yeah, where were we? Talking about the power stage from Chris Meeke. Quite the most extraordinary drive. Don't forget, you had Mickelson, not Mickelson, we'll talk about him later. We had Neuville battling with Ogier. We had, I suppose, Tanak to some degree still having to push. We certainly had Latvala and Loeb pushing to the max because they were battling for position. And Meeke was 2.5 seconds quicker than everyone. It was the most astonishing drive, and it shows the potential that's there if it needed to be shown. We know the Yaris is the form of the field. That is the class act right now. The power, the speed, the drivability in that Yaris is remarkable. It still has a few small little issues. Last year it was suspension. Is it the rims this year? We'll have to wait and see. Don't forget, rims are not homologated, so you can change them. There's a minimum weight that you have to achieve for the rims. And I suppose what some teams might look to do is to take a bit of weight out of the rims. Often the way the rim performs clearly is in conjunction with the suspension. If the rim's taking more of the impacts because the suspension is taking less, that makes them vulnerable. If the rim has had a bit of weight taken out of it, if it's engineered for maximum lightness, that may take a little bit of durability out of it. But they are not homologated, so at any point, the Toyota team can look to see whether there is an issue there, and there may not be. It may just be a little bit of bad luck. But if there is an issue, they are free to change those at any point. But going back to Meeke, really quite the most remarkable drive through the power stage. And if that is an indication of where his pace is at for the rest of the year, we're in for a special treat with Chris Meeke. But let's talk about the fight at the front now between Ogier and Mikkelsen. I keep saying Mikkelsen. Don't know why. I've got Mikkelsen on my brain because I'm going to come to him in a bit. Between Ogier and Neuville. It was enthralling. It was captivating. It was energetic. It was driving of the highest quality by both of those two men. And really the perfect way to start the season. And do you know what? When we got to Sunday morning, there was 4.6, 4.8 seconds between the two in Ogier's favour. It did look, after the opening stage of Sunday morning, as if it was Sardinia last year all over again. In terms of Neuville just nibbling away. Remember the final stage in Sardinia, Neuville had 0.8 of a second to make up. This time it was only 0.4 of a second. And we had the added complication, the added factor of potentially a problem for Ogier. Now, a number of people suggesting did he or didn't he have a problem. He clearly did have a problem. He wasn't in those opening three stages anywhere near his best in terms of where he was at mentally, because at the stage end he was all over the place. It would take a real actor to fake what I was seeing between stages and at the stage end from Sébastien Ogier. I do believe that he had a genuine problem with the throttle on that Citroën C3. Now the issue was the throttle occasionally staying open, particularly under braking. That's terrifying. That really is terrifying and very difficult to deal with because it was very intermittent. Wasn't there all the time, but even when he thought he'd fixed it, he wasn't sure. It was at the back of his mind. Is it going to stay open under the next heavy braking? Really tough loop of stages for Ogier, but he showed his class. He really did show his class, particularly in the final stage where he didn't just beat Thierry Neuville, he thrashed him. What was it? He was 1.8 seconds quicker, something like that. That is a thrashing in terms of the stage times, which were so close over the whole of the weekend. But he used all of his knowledge, all of his experience to win that one and to make it 6 in a row, to make it 7 Monte wins in total. But what does it tell us for the rest of the season? You can't read a lot into Monte. What we can read into Monte is the performance of Thierry Neuville. It was magnificent. He stuck at it. He didn't do anything silly. Yes, he pushed hard, and he did seem to be pushing harder than Ogier throughout the course of the weekend, perhaps taking a few more risks. But it was measured, it was controlled, it was very, very, very much within the limits for Thierry Neuville. What about the Hyundai? Well, really too early to tell. It went well, didn't it, with Neuville? And it went well with Sébastien Loeb. What a rally he had. But you really can't judge where the cars are at because the Monte is so specific. It's difficult to tell. What we know from the end of last season and what we know from the performance in Monte is that the Toyota is remarkably fast and remarkably strong just now. Take out potentially the rim issue. We know that the Citroën, in the right circumstances, works extremely well. Well balanced, has the power, has the drivability. Hasn't got the broadest of operating windows though, and that will be Ogier's concern. It certainly was his concern before Christmas. Have they done enough work on that? It will be continuing, that is for sure. The Hyundai, well again we know that needed some work. It did look good, it looked strong, it looked competitive, very, very competitive. But they need to continue to develop that car, I believe. The small concern for me is M Sport. I think the M Sport car looks good. For me, the driver lineup, it's youthful, it's energetic, it has potential That is all it had in Monte Carlo, potential. I thought Pontus Tiedemann did a decent job, made a mistake, clearly. What did he make a mistake? He broke a wishbone, didn't he? Was that, I can't remember what caused that. You look at Elfyn Evans and, well, it was a mistake from Evans, that's for sure. He puts himself under pressure. What about Teemu Sunanen? Well, again, Sunanen made a mistake on a treacherous corner on the opening evening on Thursday. But he then bounced back and he set some very good times. For me, Sunanen didn't have a bad rally. Really didn't. Take out that one mistake. Evans, well, he's the number one driver, so there's clearly more attention on him. There's more focus on him, and there is an awful lot more pressure on Evans because, Malcolm Wilson, as we said many times at the end of last year, had a choice of drivers. And he chose Evans. He chose to give Evans, after a lackluster 2018, he chose to give Evans another go in 2019. And already the pressure is there. One mistake, big pressure. Can't afford to have another mistake in Sweden. He really can't, because there are drivers waiting in the sidelines, watching, hoping that an opportunity comes along for them. In a similar position, clearly, is the man I was talking about earlier, whose name has just left me, Andreas Mikkelsen. Strange afternoon I'm having with names. Does happen occasionally. Andreas Mikkelsen, well, he did look good. He looked quick. He was up to third place. But then a mistake, a real mistake. Saturday morning, or was it Saturday afternoon? Can't remember when it was, but it was Saturday, that's for sure. Final corner of the stage, trying to flatline it through the flying finish, and the car just slipped wide. It was a mistake. Hit the wall, lost the wheel. Whoa, pressure on Mikkelsen. The issue that Andreas has got right now is that he can drive day in, day out for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place. I wouldn't even say 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place. He has a pace which will bring home those results on every rally without too much hassle. What tends to be happening is that when he tries to push the pace, and we see him pushing for podium challenging places, mistakes tend to come. That is a worry for Mikkelsen. That has to be a worry for Mikkelsen. Because he wants to be there. He wants to propel himself into the elite, and he's not far away. The elite are those who can win any rally. 6 of them in the current field. There's clearly all 3 at Toyota. I include Jari Matti, even though he had a difficult rally in Monte Carlo. Again, he used his head, he got to the finish. He wasn't comfortable. But Jari Matti is still a driver who could win any rally. All 3 Toyota drivers, you have at Hyundai, you have clearly Sebastian Loeb, who can win any rally he starts. You have Thierry Neuville, and at Citroën, you clearly have Sebastian Ogier. So there's 6 drivers, in my view, who are in the elite of the World Rally Championship. And Mikkelsen wants to get himself back up into that group. He was there, I believe, he was knocking on the door a couple of years ago. I'm not so sure he was there, but he was certainly knocking on the door. The door was slammed firmly in his face and he ran away for a year or so. But he is back knocking on the door. But what he needs more than anything now is a good run of results. Does he need to consolidate again? Well, I'm not sure he does, because we know, as I've said, that he can drive at that pace that delivers 6th, 7th and 8th, day in, day out, without an issue. That is not in question. We know he can do that. What we want to know is, can he again regularly challenge for podiums? It's a tough situation for Mikkelsen, a tough situation. And again, much like Elfyn Evans, first rally of the season, 2 drivers who perhaps were in the most, not precarious positions, but had the most pressure on them, have both put a little more pressure on themselves after Monte Carlo. But take those 2 away, it was fascinating at the front. I mentioned briefly Latvala there. Yeah, not a bad rally at all from Latvala. Didn't feel comfortable. Sunday, he kind of wasn't at the races, and particularly in that final stage, he just almost seemed to give up. But, he finished. He finished with good points. He sets himself up nicely for the year. As I say, it was a great event, and a fantastic performance from Sebastian Ogier. It couldn't have been better from Ogier. It really couldn't. Magnificently controlled, in control, and that is the hallmark of a great champion. He was very much controlling it from the front. Even when he was under pressure on the Sunday, he still felt he had a bit of control over proceedings. Let's see how it pans out in the year. But, as the year goes on, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen as the year goes on? But we're set up nicely after this weekend. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of other notable performances in Monte Carlo. Well, one in particular, Gus Greensmith. Wow. I have to say, I've been watching Gus for a few years now, and, when I first started doing the British Rally Championship in 2016, Gus was doing the juniors, and he made an impression then. Then went across, obviously, to do the WRC, in particular WRC2. And a couple of years ago, I remember in Poland, day one in Poland, he was magnificent, up until stage 8, I think it was. Remarkably fast, against the likes of, at the time it was against the likes of Tiedemann and Meeke and others who were considered very much the class of the four-wheel drive WRC2 category. He was beating them, and then he crashed. Now, it went for me a little bit backwards for 14 or so months for Gus. Now, he'll argue quite differently that last year was a good year for him. Yes, he got 3 podiums last year, but we didn't see the performances that we were expecting. We didn't see that Poland-like pace again. We didn't see consistency. He got podiums, but he didn't really impress. And I'd have to say, I think there were not question marks at the end of last year, but it was a little bit of impatience. Some of us were really looking for more from young Gus. Well, he gave us more in Monte Carlo. He gave us absolutely everything that we needed to see in Monte Carlo. We saw intelligence from him in terms of his approach. We saw patience from him, which we haven't seen in the past. Where you were going out on a compromised tyre, first stage of the loop, I can remember, I think it was Saturday, losing bucket loads of time. He didn't do anything silly. He didn't do anything impetuous. He didn't do anything untoward. He waited. He looked after those tyres, knowing they would come into their own on the next stage, and then he set the times. It was a massively impressive performance from Gus Greensmith, and it wasn't just a step forward. It wasn't just a stride forward. It was a leap forward in his first win in WRC2. He's never lacked confidence, has he? But he seemed to grow a little bit in Monte Carlo. Really seemed as if, for the first time, in my view, that he felt he rightly belonged amongst the top challengers in WRC2. He clearly won WRC2 Pro, but he was the fastest of the R5 cars, and that was what he was looking for in Monte Carlo. A remarkable start to the season. He beat some very strong tarmac drivers. Don't forget, Greensmith, in my view, has more potential, is quicker on gravel than he is on tarmac. What's he got to come this year? Well, he's got an outing in a WRC car. He can look forward to that. But he's said it many times, his focus, WRC2 Pro, the WRC2 class is his focus this year. He's got a great team behind him. I'm very impressed in particular with the family around Greensmith. His father is a very, very down-to-earth, hard man. But doesn't talk any nonsense, tells his boy what he needs to do. And most of the time, not all the time, his boy does what his dad tells him. Gus Greensmith, great efforts. Really, really strong drive from him in Monte Carlo. So there we are. That is that. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. Again, a little bit parochial. Anyone that was at the Autosport show that's got anything to do with British rallying would have come across Rally Team UK. Now, for those of you who are not aware, Rally Team UK is fronted by quite a colourful character. Listen, and there are characters around all sports, rumours and speculation and gossip about this gentleman, but, colour is good for me. Colour really is good. We need characters in our sport. So Rally Team UK have come along and they are waving the magic wand at British rallying, supposedly. The gentleman, Mr. Curzon, who is running Rally Team UK, is talking about investing an awful lot of money in British rallying and in British drivers in particular, to take drivers from the junior class in the British Rally Championship all the way to the very top in the World Rally Championship. And do you know what? It is no surprise that there's been a little bit, stroke an awful lot, of scepticism about this project. What I would say is that skepticism is fine. It's absolutely fine, because these things don't happen in rallying. You don't have people coming along with many millions of pounds, euros of their own money looking to spend it. It doesn't happen very often, rarely, if ever at all. So skepticism is fine, but what I would say, give these guys a fair crack off the whip. I've met them a couple of times, and yeah, you know, I'm not 100% convinced that everything that we're being told will happen, but I'm also not convinced that they're not genuine. I think they are genuine. But let's see what happens. You know, we've got the Cambrian Rally coming up very shortly, and the idea is that Rally Team UK will have Rally Team UK liveried cars and contracted drivers on the Cambrian Rally. And if that happens, British rallying should go out and celebrate, because it's a rare occasion that we get a benefactor coming along with the right intentions in this sport. It is a rare occasion. And if it happens, celebrate, because it can only be good news for British rallying. But I understand the skepticism, I understand the questions that are being asked. And I am not, as I say, 100% convinced that everything that is being talked about will be delivered. But I think they're genuine. I think they're genuine people. So we'll wait and see, and I really hope they are, because it will be great for British rallying. So there we are, folks. That is my thoughts from the kitchen table after a quite remarkable Monte Carlo rally. Very much looking forward now to Rally Sweden and to see what happens there. Can Toyota continue their dominance? I think they can. Will Ogier struggle being first on the road? I think he will. And we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see. Can Chris Meeke win that one? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. So folks, once again, thank you very much for watching and listening to my thoughts from the kitchen table. And again, just a little reminder to you as I drink my tea, which, as someone pointed out, is quite cold by this point. Sarema Rally mug. I'm liking this one just now. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, do me a favour, subscribe for me and press the like button. If you're watching on Facebook, a little like as well would be greatly appreciated, and perhaps a share if you think it's worth sharing. So YouTube, subscribe and like, Facebook, like and share. The other quick thing I'd just like to mention, if anyone is interested in talking to me about utilising the audience that we've managed to generate at the kitchen table here, and well, quite remarkably, somewhere close to 25,000 people per episode are watching or listening to my thoughts from the kitchen table. If you have a brand, a product, a service that you think might benefit from being associated with the kitchen table and having access to my gorgeous and lovely audience, then send me a little note. Leave me a note wherever you can find me, and we'll get in touch and we'll discuss things. That would be very kind of you. Lots of things to talk about going forward. Lots of new plans for the kitchen table this year. Lots of new initiatives. So if you want to be involved in that as a brand, a product, a service, then do let me know. So once again, folks, thank you very much for listening to my thoughts from the kitchen table.